Now, I've noticed something about the way that people watch TV shows now. A character does something terrible, and within 5 minutes, comment sections are turned on. Up in arms, it's a courtroom. She's right, she's wrong. We're all judgy. She deserved it. Should have left. Case closed. And these conversations to me are very boring. All right, they get old very quickly. And I recently finished watching The Polygamist. Actually today, like a few hours ago, I finished watching it, and I've told myself that as soon as I'm done watching the series, I'm gonna make a video about it. And here I am. Look at me committing. Ha 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 ha. A lot of people cannot relate. Anyways, The Polygamist is a show on Netflix. But anyways, first of all, shout out to everybody involved in making that show. Every single person, bro, because the show got me hooked. All right, I genuinely was not expecting that. And while everyone was arguing about who's right and who's wrong, I got stuck on one character. Okay, that character is Jonasi Gomora, who I'll be referring to as Joe because I'm not gonna be saying his whole name. But yeah, I kept wondering where this guy came from. What happened to what happened before this specific version of him existed? Because people don't just wake up one morning and become someone like him, right? Or some do, but like it's a movie, right? Usually we get a little bit of background sauce, but they didn't give it to us here, and I understand they don't owe it to me. But anyways, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Monday Show, and today we are going to be talking about The Polygamist, like I mentioned previously. Netflix's first ever South African super novella. The hell is a super novella? I don't know. I'm gonna Google it. Don't worry though. If you have not watched it, I'm not gonna spoil it. Don't worry. I would not do such a thing. I'm not gonna spoil every twist and every episode. I'll keep things fairly light because I think it's a very good show, and I also think people should experience it for themselves. I also don't want this video to become another I don't want it to become another gender wars debate. This is not what we're doing on the Monday Show when we talk about anything, right? I'm not gonna be talking about Team Joyce, Team Jonasi, Team anybody. Okay, not here for those type of discussions. Those types of discussions are boring. I'm not interested. The internet has already done that. You can find a video there. You can go on to American Twitter, and you can go have those types of black conversations. This is not that. All right. But yeah, there's one character I kept thinking about throughout watching the show, and I wanted to unpack why. So stick tuned, and yeah, I'll tell you who and why soon. But for now, let's just talk about the show and what it's about. At its core, The Polygamist follows Joyce Gomora, whose her life is basically, slowly beginning to unravel as she discovers the whole truth about her husband. Not only does she discovers it, but she becomes disillusioned with this whole thing. Jonasi is her husband. Joe has built the image of this successful man, successful businessman, respected family man, provider, all of that. And behind the image, though, he's living multiple lives. He's juggling different relationships and leaving chaos with him wherever he goes. This man is a literal walking ball of chaos. Okay. And one thing I liked straight away was how the series opens. So we begin at Joe's funeral before jumping back in time. So the question isn't, does everything fall apart? You already know it does. The interesting part now is, how do we get there? So the question isn't, does it fall apart? We already know it does. The interesting part is now we're watching every single decision slowly pile up until now we're realizing, okay, the ending is starting to make sense now. And when I tell you about the twist, my lord, by the way, book was written by Usunati, amazing South African author. If you'd like to read the original book, go check it out. I don't know where, but I just felt like I need to give that a shout out. Yeah. But as the story develops, though, we are also given the opportunity to also spend time with the rest of his family. We get to know his son, his daughter. We don't really see the younger kids, which is fine. But yeah, we also meet Menzi, his eldest son, we'll come back to those two because I think that's one of the most interesting dynamics, relationships in this series for me. For me? Why for me? It has nothing to do with me. Anyways, let's talk about what I liked the most. And I'll be honest, this isn't the type of show that I usually put on. But a few episodes in, bro, let me tell you, I realized I was hooked. I was hooked. I was locked in. I had no choice but to be invested. The pacing was quite good, and every episode gives you enough to keep watching without feeling like it's dragging out. Okay, so the performances themselves, they're solid. Ustumum Charlie. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but I don't remember how it's pronounced. So yeah, but he does a really good job as Jonas because he has a very complex and difficult character that he has to carry. So you get to understand why people are drawn to this character. He's very charismatic, and at the same time, you kind of see the damage that he leaves in his wake. You see the damage that he causes everywhere he goes, how he affects people. And then also we have Ukuku Kumet, and she is amazing as Joyce. A lot of the emotional weight of the series, it rests on her shoulders, and we are basically watching from her POV, right? So it's safe to say that it's her story. And you know what? She carries it really well. Production wise, I'd say honestly, I don't really have many complaints. Everything felt intentional. The cinematography works, soundtrack is fine. Nothing really pulled me out of the experience. I was immersed through and through, and the show knows exactly what it wants to be. So any, I guess, complaints or critiques that I have, it's just out of me wanting more, or saying what I would have liked to see. But I'm also taking into account that they didn't owe me any of that. They didn't have to do any of that. The final product is fine as is, right? But yeah, the show knows its identity, and it never felt confused about what it is. It never felt confused about its story. So yeah, you can tell that the people behind it had a clear direction from the beginning. I don't know if it's accurate to its to to the book. I've never read the book, so I'm not gonna take my understanding of any of the characters from the book. Honestly, it's all about what I see in the show. So let's talk about Joe. Joe. Talk about this man, bro. He's manipulative, he's controlling, he's abusive, he's reckless with sex, he's charismatic. He treats women as if they are there to satisfy whatever he wants in that moment. He's a very evil man, all right? I'm sorry that I was smiling when I was saying that. It was just funny at the time, not while I was watching. In hindsight, and the things that he did is just terrible. Okay, watch the show. But yeah. Anyways, then you also look at the relationship that he has with his kids. Menzi, particularly, he constantly tries to force rigid this very rigid version of masculinity onto his son. He humiliates him, he berates him, he beats him up, he even choked him with the belt. He speaks down to him, he pushes him to become tougher, more aggressive, more dominant. But you can tell that Menzi is not built that way. He's a lot more shy, he's a lot more awkward. And when he starts navigating relationships, like a time he fell in love with sideshow Bop. Bop the Builder, Mrs. 305 herself, Lindani. Oh my god. Okay, wait, fuck. She's a child too. But still, he fell in love with her, and it felt like it was genuine from him. Or at least he thought he was being genuine. He when he starts trying to pursue her and stuff like that, he doesn't do anything that his father does. In fact, his friend, Freedom, who is actually his cousin, is it his cousin? I do not know. He thinks it's his. Almost spoiled it. Almost spoiled it, but I'm not gonna spoil it anyways. But they're very close, right? He's also getting this very toxic advice as to how to attract the ladies. These things work for a lot of men though. So if it works, then obviously you try it, right? But yeah, watching these two interact became one of my favorite parts of the series because you can almost see two completely different ideas of manhood just living under the same roof. However, the one thing that I wanted more of, and I guess this is probably my biggest criticism of the show, I wanted more history for Joe. I'm not saying more screen time. He got plenty of that. The screen time he got, he was doing horrible things. Right? We need more of that, but more background, something to enrich the character. I kept asking myself, where does this version of himself come from? And growing up in South Africa, it's quite easy to connect it to the fact that there are certain ideas about masculinity that boys are exposed to from a young age, which you can clearly see Joe trying to impose on his son. It just it just would have been fun to see, not fun, but it would have been enriching of his character, like I said, to see that. Oh, yeah, because we know that there are certain ideas about masculinity that you're supposed to you're exposed to from a young age. So these things come from like how many girls you've been with. Do you cry? Do you fight? How angry do you get? Have you had sex yet? If you've not had sex yet, do you know how to talk to girls? You're scared of girls. Oh, you're soft. Whether you're hard enough, all that shit. Whether you're a real man. These conversations happen all the time. This pressure exists, especially maybe whatever era that someone the age of Joe grew up in. Right? It would have been cool to see. Where did that come from? From him? Who taught him that this was what a man looked like? What experiences reinforced those ideas? What happened before this version of Jonasi existed? What kind of person was he like? We kind of got a glimpse of it in the flashback episode, right? He gets bullied, he gets attacked by a bunch of kids. Essie comes in, she saves him. So we can see that Joe was not always the way that he was. He was quite small. He got picked on a lot. His father was an alcoholic. They mention these things. They mention them. They don't show them. They don't really show how they affected him. If they had given us just a glimpse, if they have just shown us his father giving him a backhand just for the one time, his father coming back home from the shebeen, drunk out of his mind, and just beating up everybody in the house, just turning it into a Royal Rumble. Just pow, 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 pow. And then asking for his food and saying, whatever, it's, yeah, you get it, it's a bit cliche, but I feel like it would have been a bit of an enrichment. You'll be like, damn, that makes sense. Damn, that makes sense. But they mentioned it, show, don't tell. Maybe a little bit more of show and a little bit less tell. That would have been cool. But yeah, for me, characters do become more interesting when you understand how they ended up the way that they are. And what else did one scene that didn't sit right with me? Listen, I feel like a lot of people made a good point. They made this point. A lot of people made this point right online about the excessive, erotic scenes that we got on the show. And you know what? There's no use. There's no use complaining about it. But I will say that how you do them can make a whole lot of a huge difference, right? This one scene specifically, it kind of was bothering me. The scene between Joe and Lindani. I mentioned Lindani previously. I called her Sideshow Bob. I'm sorry for calling you Bob the Builder, Lindani. But yeah, the scene itself does belong in the story. I never questioned that, right? But because okay, the scene itself shows, or rather, it adds on to Jonasi's portrayal as this person, or rather Jonasi's relationship with sex, right? It tells you exactly who he is. It tells you a lot about who he is as a person, his mindset. He's excessive, he's impulsive, he crosses boundaries. Every single boundary in front of him, he crosses it. He doesn't care. Doesn't really think twice about it. If he wants something, he just goes and get it because the world belongs to him. World is his. He's that entitled, right? The way the scene was filmed itself is what threw me off. The lighting felt glamorous. The atmosphere felt romantic. The camera lingered in a way that reminded me of scenes, of two consenting adults in romantic dramas. Meanwhile, the story is showing a man grooming a minor. Lindani is not just another woman that Joe met. She's somebody his family has known for years. She is Joe and and Joyce's daughter friend, childhood friend. All right, so they basically raised that child. She grew up right in front of them, and he turned out and he had sex with her. It's something that's very evil. It's very insidious, and it's very. It I feel like should have. They should have. I would have liked the filmmaking to lean into how disturbing that situation is. Make it uncomfortable, make it unsettling, make me sit there thinking this guy is very evil and very unredeemable. I think that would have landed much harder for me. That's what I would have preferred to see. I do not want to see or picture Lindani and Joe in a romantic situation. That's how they should have portrayed it. But also, Lindani is not portrayed as someone that is a dainty flower. She is somebody that knows what she wants. She grew, she's already told us what she wants in the beginning, the first 5 episodes. She did say she likes a man who's powerful. She likes a man who has money. She likes a man who knows what he wants and takes it. That's what she said to. She said it to my boy. So yeah, be that as may, though, the scene should have still showed just how wrong it was for that scene, for that to even happen. So many other things that I would like to talk about, but yeah, as for these critiques that I've mentioned, I don't think it hurts the show. Everything I've said comes down to just personal curiosity. None of it stopped me from enjoying the series. It isn't Jonasi's story. It's Joyce's story, right? That's why I didn't speak much about Joyce. I think the show expanded really well on her story. I think it expanded really well on her, as well as the performance also from Ukuku. I did not. She owes me nothing. That's what I'll say. She owes me nothing. It was a complete performance. She did quite well. It was fantastic. The show spends time, exploring people living with the consequences of Joe's behavior, and I guess that's a story that it wanted to tell. I would have enjoyed a little bit more insight into him, though. But I also understand why these answers never came, and they don't owe me these answers at all, actually. But yeah, final thoughts. I enjoyed The Polygamist. I understand why it's trending. The performances are strong. The pacing keeps you invested. I'm not gonna lie. I was ready to dismiss it as Bantu slop. I was ready to, dismiss it as Goonie Taloperi. I was ready to call it the extended version of Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the South African edition. I was ready. I had all these slander names prepared. But you know what, bro? They shut me up. I kept thinking about the characters. I kept replaying certain scenes in my head. To me, that's always a good sign. When a show is still sitting with you, after the credits roll, that's how you know it did something right. So yeah, if you've watched the show The Polygamist, yeah, let me know what you thought. Let me know. I'm genuinely interested in hearing what you guys enjoyed about the show. If you do enjoy it, what do you guys make of any of the characters that you've seen? Who was your favorite character? And I would have loved, to expand on my thoughts on the show, but I really wanted to keep it brief, man. And but if you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend giving it a chance. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, please comment, and subscribe. I've got a lot more videos coming out, and I'm gonna be expanding everything that I talk about now. I'm not just gonna be talking about music. I'm talking about a lot more stuff: films, TV shows, everything, and whatever else catches my attention. But yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Please subscribe. We're back. I'll see you guys on the next one. Shout out.